Ever stop to really think about the winding paths of love, the inevitable bumps of loss, and just how much we transform through our relationships?
It's a big question.
It really is. Today, we're diving into some pretty profound ideas on exactly that.
Hmm.
Our springboard is a recent conversation. It was between Tucky Miniam and Thuy Min on Viet Cetera's Lofi Yolan podcast over on YouTube.
Ah, yes. It was a truly insightful discussion, actually, all in Vietnamese, and it offered a really fresh perspective on attracting positive energy, both in our lives generally and within our relationships specifically.
Right.
They touched on the complexities, the role of suffering, which, yeah, might sound a bit surprising at first, and the absolute necessity of knowing ourselves deeply,
Right.
really knowing ourselves.
Okay, so our mission here, our plan for this deep dive, is to kind of distill the core wisdom from that conversation.
Yeah.
Think of it like a shortcut to some really valuable perspectives on love, connection, and, well, our own well-being. We're aiming to unpack some of their, perhaps, unexpected viewpoints and give you some solid food for thought as you navigate your own relationships.
Sounds good. So where should we start? Maybe with something that might feel a bit counterintuitive?
Go for it.
The idea that suffering is actually inherent in relationships. The conversation highlighted that, well, while nobody seeks it out, obviously it's a fundamental part of being human.
Right.
And perhaps more surprisingly, it can be a real catalyst for growth. Like actual positive change can come from it.
Right. And they drew a really compelling distinction there, didn't they? When they talked about different ways relationships end. It wasn't just the fact of an ending, but the nature of that ending.
Exactly.
They specifically compared the impact of, say, a loss due to external circumstances, like an accident, versus one caused by betrayal. What stood out to you there?
Well, what's fascinating is the very different imprint each type of ending leaves. They suggested that when a relationship ends because of, an accident or some tragedy, while the grief is obviously immense, it often allows for the cherished memories to remain intact. The love endures, in a way. There's a sense that healing, though incredibly difficult, can maybe follow a more direct path.
It's like the love itself isn't tainted, is it?
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
But then they contrasted that with an ending caused by betrayal.
Yeah.
The impact there, they argued, can be far more corrosive.
Oh, absolutely. Betrayal, they pointed out, can create these really deep psychological wounds. It breeds resentment, and it can even lead to a painful rewriting of the past, where all the good memories get sort of overshadowed by the hurt. The suffering is often more intense, it lasts longer, and it can really erode one's sense of trust and even self-worth. It's quite destructive.
Yeah, that resonates. Now, here's a point that really made me pause. Their take on whether couples should stay together for the children. Their perspective, it definitely challenges some commonly held beliefs.
It does, and this raises such a crucial point about the emotional atmosphere within a home,
Right.
Their argument was essentially that the negative energy, the constant tension between unhappy parents, can actually be more damaging to children than if those parents were to choose separate, maybe healthier environments.
It makes a lot of sense when you think about how perceptive kids are.
Mhm.
They really pick up on underlying tension, don't they? Even if it's unspoken. And that lack of security can be really unsettling for them.
Precisely. They pointed out that even if the romantic relationship ends, there's still the possibility, hopefully, of building a respectful co-parenting relationship. And this allows children to maintain connections with both parents, but maybe in a more stable and supportive way, even if the family structure itself has changed.
Okay. Now, let's maybe pivot a bit. Let's talk about something else we've all likely experienced at some point.
Mhm.
Those moments in a relationship where the spark seems to dim and boredom creeps in. They tackle this feeling head on.
Yeah, they did. And what's intriguing here is their idea that our feelings of boredom towards a partner might actually mirror our own internal landscape. Like our own level of engagement or disinterest in life generally, rather than it being solely about the other person.
Ah, okay. It's that classic grass is greener trap, isn't it?
Sort of, yeah. We tend to idealize potential new connections while maybe undervaluing what we currently have.
Right.
But their point was that even if we chase that greener grass, the initial excitement often fades, and the cycle can just repeat itself.
So it's not necessarily the partner, it could be us.
It could be. They highlighted how our own psychological states, like shifts in mood, hormonal changes, maybe unresolved past experiences, or even the influence of our inner child, can significantly contribute to feelings of boredom within a relationship.
Interesting.
And these feelings, they emphasize, aren't necessarily a permanent reflection of the relationship itself. They could be temporary.
So the key takeaway isn't to immediately, jump ship when those feelings arise.
Exactly. They stress the importance of giving the relationship opportunities for renewal, for actively trying to reignite that connection, rather than just acting on those fleeting feelings of boredom.
Connecting this to the bigger picture, then, it really reinforces the idea that relationships are dynamic, they're living things, and they require ongoing effort.
Absolutely. Those feelings of boredom could actually be a signal, maybe a signal to turn inward, explore our own needs, or just find new ways to connect with our partner.
Okay, let's talk about how we approach love as we mature. They touched on the shift from purely emotional decisions towards incorporating more reason.
Right. They acknowledge that, youthful love is often characterized by intense emotions. It's kind of a whirlwind.
Definitely.
However, as we gain more life experience, navigate its complexities, there's often a natural and, they argued, necessary shift towards integrating reason, bringing our whole selves, our understanding, into how we love.
But they also warned against going too far in the other direction, didn't they? Like overthinking things or delaying love indefinitely.
Yes, that's such an important balance to strike. While incorporating reason is vital, getting stuck in excessive analysis or a prolonged avoidance of love, perhaps driven by fear or negative preconceptions, that can also create its own set of challenges.
Mm-hmm.
It might prevent us from experiencing really meaningful connections.
That makes sense. The conversation then touched on something they called the paradox of love and self-loss. This idea that there's an inherent risk, almost, of losing a part of yourself when you become deeply involved with someone.
Yeah, the possibility of neglecting one's own needs or losing that sense of individual identity within a relationship, that's a real concern for many people.
Mhm.
And delaying love until one feels completely ready, whatever that means, can sometimes be a way of trying to shield oneself from this potential vulnerability, trying to protect yourself.
Which leads quite naturally, I think, to their discussion about how happiness and suffering are kind of intertwined. Not just in life generally, but specifically within the context of love.
Yeah, their core message there seemed to be that true happiness, both in life and in love, isn't really about avoiding challenges or pain altogether. It actually involves accepting them as part of the whole experience.
Accepting the package deal.
Kind of, yeah. There's an implicit understanding that the profound joys of love often come with their own share of difficulties. You sort of have to expect to pay the price, as they put it.
So if we accept that, maybe the smaller frustrations, the day-to-day annoyances in a relationship won't feel quite so overwhelming.
That seems to be the idea. When we truly appreciate the positive aspects of love in life, we're perhaps less likely to dwell excessively on minor setbacks or complaints.
Right.
It cultivates a sense of gratitude and resilience, maybe.
Yeah.
From there, they shifted to a really interesting perspective, viewing love not just as a feeling, but as a skill. What did you make of that?
I found that fascinating, seriously. The idea that a thriving relationship isn't just about luck or finding the one, but about actively developing certain abilities, like it's something you can get better at.
That was their point. If a relationship is struggling, it might not solely be due to external circumstances or even a lack of love, but potentially a lack of skill in how we nurture and maintain that connection. It puts a different kind of responsibility on both individuals involved, doesn't it?
It really does. So it's about taking ownership of our contribution to the relationship's health, rather than just blaming external factors or, our partner all the time.
Precisely. And this leads us beautifully into what they described as the 4 core meanings of true love. They encapsulated this in the Vietnamese term bông tho, which apparently means something like letting go.
Mong so, letting go.
Yeah, and they saw these 4 elements as pretty essential for a love that lasts and ultimately brings happiness.
Okay, let's unpack these 4 pillars of Bong So. The first one they highlighted was forgiveness, or maybe tolerance.
Yes, forgiveness and tolerance. What's key here is the emphasis on truly accepting each other's imperfections, mistakes, weaknesses, differences, all of it.
That's hard, though.
It is hard. It's about cultivating a generous heart capacity, as they termed it, for understanding. They specifically cautioned against ending relationships impulsively just because a partner messes up, emphasizing how crucial this capacity for forgiveness is in building real, lasting intimacy.
A large heart capacity. I like that. Okay, the second meaning within Boksa was freedom. That sounds absolutely vital for a healthy dynamic.
It really is. This aspect of true love involves allowing your partner the space, the genuine freedom to pursue their own life, their own passions and dreams without feeling controlled or manipulated.
Mm.
A true partner, they suggested, actually enhances your love for all aspects of your life, your own pursuits, your other relationships, loving yourself, not just focusing solely on the relationship itself.
That's a powerful distinction. Okay, third core meaning, offering help and support. It sounds
Thank
like
you.
they were maybe emphasizing the everyday acts of kindness.
Exactly that. Sometimes the most profound help isn't some grand gesture, but simply being present, offering kindness, creating opportunities for connection, like just taking a quiet walk together or a moment of shared stillness.
Rather than jumping in with criticism.
Right. Rather than intense interrogation or criticism, especially when someone is going through a difficult time, just being there.
Okay. And the fourth key aspect of Bernke was interdependence. They used the Vietnamese term lien lup, highlighting our interconnected existence.
Yes, lien lup. This concept really underscores that we are fundamentally relational beings. We're not isolated islands, you know? It speaks to the need for both personal time solitude, for self-reflection and rejuvenation, and meaningful engagement with others, our community, our wider social circles.
So it's balance.
It's about finding that balance,
Yeah.
recognizing when we need to withdraw to recharge ourselves and when it's time to reconnect and engage with the world and the people around us.
This idea of balancing connection and solitude seems to tie directly into their emphasis on mindfulness, or Mayfulnet, as they apparently called it, maybe adapting the English word.
Yeah, I think so. Mayfulnet. Mindfulness in this context is really about developing a continuous awareness of our own internal psychological state. How are we doing right now, whether we're alone or in a relationship?
Okay.
It's about honestly assessing ourselves, checking in so we can recognize when things feel off kilter, and then take proactive steps. Find balance, seek solutions, whatever's needed.
And ultimately, what's the overarching aim of all of this? The love, the relationships, the self-awareness, this letting go, where does it all lead?
Well, the ultimate aim, according to their conversation, is happiness, plain and simple. Love is presented as a really significant pathway towards happiness, but crucially,
Not the only one.
exactly, not the only one. They were clear in acknowledging that there are many valid paths to fulfillment, and that can include choosing solitude, perhaps for periods of intense personal growth.
They even had an interesting perspective on loneliness itself, didn't they?
Yeah.
Not necessarily framing it as a purely negative state.
Precisely. They kind of reframed loneliness as a potential homeland of genius.
Wow.
Yeah, a valuable space for introspection, for self-discovery, for personal development. They also noted that even within a committed relationship, there's sometimes a need for temporary separation, maybe just for a short time, to foster individual growth, allowing both partners to return to the connection with, hopefully, a renewed perspective.
Okay, so to recap,
Yeah.
wow. We've really journeyed through some fascinating territory here. We've explored the multifaceted nature of love, the unexpected role of suffering and growth,
Right, and navigating the complexities of staying or leaving relationships.
understanding our own patterns around boredom, that was a big one, and the crucial interplay of emotion and reason as we mature.
We also considered the vulnerability of self-loss and love, that inherent link between happiness and accepting challenges, the idea of love as a skill we can actually cultivate.
Yeah, the skill part is interesting.
And those four core principles of bongsa, or letting go, forgiveness, freedom, support, and interdependence.
All underpinned, really, by the power of self-awareness, mindfulness, and our overall pursuit of happiness.
Exactly.
These insights, I mean, while they're rooted in this specific conversation between Tudim and Niem and Duimin, they really offer a broader framework, don't they, for understanding our own relationships and our personal journeys. We really hope it sparks some valuable reflection for you listening.
Yeah, definitely some food for thought. And that brings us to maybe a final thought for you to consider. Thinking about those different types of endings and relationships they discussed, how might understanding that distinction reshape how you process loss and maybe extend forgiveness in your own life?
That's a deep one. Or perhaps reflect on that balance between seeking new experiences, that greener grass, versus appreciating the depth within your existing connections. Where do you find yourself on that spectrum right now?
Good questions to ponder. This has been a really rich exploration, pulling these ideas out, and we hope these perspectives offer you a valuable starting point for deeper thought.